Hi everybody. Today, kind of a continuation of our talk last time about your photographic process and securing the perimeter. Well, that's kind of our lead-in to start talking about composition, okay? So where things are in the frame. It's pretty important. How do you frame up a subject, okay? There are a couple of really great rules or really great strong suggestions that a lot of artists use, not just photographers, not just videographers and filmmakers, but people that paint and draw and sculpt. They all look at the relationship between objects in a frame or around a scene, okay? And one of the things we want to look at, and we can thank the Romans for this a long time ago, is looking at how is it to look at a rectangular frame and what's in it. Well, there is kind of a formula to that if you want to look at it. What we want to look at is how do we divide up this frame so that it kind of makes sense, okay? Well, one of the easy things to look at being very patriotic with red, white, and blue today, is to break up the frame in approximately 1/3. Okay, I know my drawing isn't perfect, but you get the idea, right? We really don't ever want to have a line in our frame, say the horizon. We really don't ever want to have that right in the middle, because then that breaks up our frame by half and half. And that's not easy to look at because you don't know where to look, top half or bottom half, top half or bottom half. And the viewer tends to bounce all over the place and go around, okay? So we try to not do that. The other thing we look at is now let's divide the frame again by thirds. And we see we have roughly 9 equal parts to our frame. Great. Well, that's pretty simple. It kind of looks like a window on a house with division bars in the windows, right? Looks very similar to that. But what we want to be able to do is take advantage of all the things we've learned since we were very little. And that is, how do we read? Well, we read left to right, correct. And we read what? Top to bottom. So left to right and top to bottom. So that means if we're looking at a frame or looking at a photograph or looking at an image, where are we most likely to go first? Well, you're right, you're ahead of me. We're most likely to go up here in the upper left-hand corner somewhere, right? And that's because we've been conditioned to do that, reading a magazine, reading a website, reading our phone, or reading a book. To go to the upper left-hand corner, read left to right, top to bottom. So that would make sense that we could take advantage of that as photographers and put the most important part of our frame in kind of this upper left-hand corner. Okay? We can look at putting these intersections together as maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, all kinds of people all over YouTube during this exact same lecture have all kinds of names for these. I just call them anchor points or anchor zones, right? And if you put a most important part of your picture in one of these areas, because of the way our brain works and the way we absorb images, the intersecting lines are going to be the strongest place to put something. So if you want to emphasize something, put it at 1, 2, 3, or 4, or the majority of it to be in that area. You'll see I have a PowerPoint for you to look at. We have some other videos for you to look at. This is just to get you started on composition, right? 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's called the rule of thirds. And it helps us greatly to divide our frame up into 9 equal parts and place the most important parts at one of the intersecting points or anchor points. Okay? Now it's very interesting. If we're so used to reading and seeing things go from left to right, what do you think happens to the viewer if we take and put the most important part of our picture, say, in anchor point 4 or anchor point 2? What does that cause the viewer to do? You're right. It causes the viewer to go over and look at our image from right to left. Now that introduces some tension, some visual tension, or some visual incongruity in absorbing the image. Now, this is not rocket science, but let's think about a lot of scary movies. A lot of scary movies are done opposite of what we're used to seeing because they want to trip you up visually. So they don't put the leading character here, they put the leading character over there and the other bad guy over here, or something like that. So you can see there's lots of things you can do to start moving the viewer's eye around in the image, okay? So what if you want to have the most important thing or the most important part of your picture down here in this corner? Well, you cause somebody to start in the upper left and go all the way diagonally to the lower right-hand corner. So that's a lot of eye movement. That creates a lot of direction or flow in the picture. Now we're starting to get somewhere, right? So the human eye will look at something. All you have to do in your images is give them a place to go. Have the picture have some left to right flow if that's what you're trying to do. It's easy, it's smooth, we're used to doing that. You want to introduce a little tension in your image, have it go from right to left or from upper right to lower left. So when we start thinking about composition, it's not just what's in the frame. Well, that's very important, but it's the angle and where things are positioned in the frame. And rule of thirds is something that will not let you down. Now, you may not always choose to use it, but remember, your viewer is very used to using this even if they don't know that, because they're very used to starting in the upper left-hand corner and going across the frame first. They're very used to doing that. So take that into account when you're composing your images and try to put the strongest part of your frame in the upper left-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, and move, let your subject move through the frame so that your viewer has a place to go. Okay, remember, very few things can be shot dead on square up. Now, I didn't say nothing. I said very few things can be shot dead on square up. This is typically pretty boring, right? Dead on square up. This is a little bit better. It has some movement, some direction to it, right? You see that right away. Simple explanation, okay? So dead on square up is pretty boring. Let's have something that has some movement and direction to it. It makes a big difference on how our eye flows through the image. Because you want to lead them somewhere. They will follow. Just give them a place to go. All right, see you next time. Thanks.